Let's jump into it. So again, if you're here to learn about Feathr, as well as Razor's Edge NXT, you are in the right place. I'm Aiden Augustine. I'm the co-founder and chief revenue officer over here at Feathr. So I know we have a mix of existing Feathr customers in the house, as well as some new faces interested in learning more. So trying to adjust the content accordingly. This will be interesting to all parties. Shout out to all the Feathr customers. Thank you for joining. We love you. Thank you for being part of the extended Feathr flock. So let's jump into it. First, real quick about myself. Love working with nonprofits. My mom worked in nonprofits. My sister works in nonprofits. I was an Eagle Scout and have had the privilege to, this photo is from a fundraiser that I did last year, be involved with a lot of great community organizations in my home of Gainesville, Florida. These are the boards that I've served on or I'm currently serving on, a couple of small orgs where I got to help go from 0 to 1, hiring of the first staff, as well as a couple of more established organizations like the Community Foundation and Chamber for our area. So I've had the good fortune to serve on a number of great boards of different sizes and love doing so. My most interesting peer-to-peer fundraising experience, fun fact, I did a local Dancing with the Stars earlier this year. So this was the fundraiser for the National Ballet called Dance Alive, the nationally touring ballet company based in Gainesville, and their big fun annual fundraising effort is they do basically a regional version of Dancing with the Stars. And so I was one of the stars, and of course was a fundraiser as part of that. But this is a fun photo from our little salsa routine. We danced to a salsa version, Spanish language cover of Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles. Good time. All right, so here at Feathr, something we like to say a lot is that marketing is good. That if more good causes and more nonprofits did more effective marketing, the world would be a better place, because marketing is a force multiplier for driving donations and helping you raise more money. It's a force multiplier for driving awareness of both your organization as well as the cause and the population you serve, for driving more engagement with the programs and services you offer, actually reaching the population that you serve. So this is a core belief of ours here, which is marketing is a force for good. And if we can help more nonprofits do more marketing, the world will be a better place. So that's sort of Feathr's reason for existence. And we've built a marketing platform specifically designed to help nonprofits leverage the kind of best practices in digital marketing and marketing automation and things that have been kind of maybe developed for other spaces. We want to help modify them appropriately so to bring them into nonprofit use cases and best practices. So that's sort of Feathr's reason for existence. I'm going to give a high-level overview of Feathr and try to jump relatively quickly into use cases and best practices, because I know about half the folks here are probably existing Feathr customers. But a quick overview, this is how we would describe Feathr. We're a marketing automation platform, and we specifically help nonprofits do omni-channel or multi-channel digital campaigns. And so Feathr can be the primary email marketing solution. And not only can we do kind of normal email marketing, you can do some fancy email marketing, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, and how an integration with Razor's Edge can help enable like more interesting marketing automation and segmentation. But you can also do various forms of digital advertising from within Feathr, whether that's display, programmatic display, pre-roll video, the kind of ads that follow people around the web onto mobile devices across different websites, social advertising within Meta, your Google Ad Grant you can run out of Feathr, and various other forms of website engagement, like pop-ups, little micro surveys, forms, website analytics to track all of that. So this is sort of us, all in one, or at least most in one digital marketing platform. This is what we're building here. So what does that help you do? I'm going to show a couple of quick examples, right? So we're not going to talk too much about the advertising side today, but you can reach new audiences with targeted display ads. That's what's shown here. Targeting people based on location. You can geofence a major event. You can geofence a neighborhood. You can target people based on their interests, based on their recent searches. That's what's shown here, right? So it's reaching new people with targeted digital advertising to drive them to your website for the first time. You can also use targeted digital advertising to re-engage your existing community, right? So this would be people who are already engaged with your website, right? People who are already donors, people who are checking out your site anonymously. You can leverage your existing email list to target ads to people in your CRM. All right, so let's segue to that. So getting data from your CRM, you can do what's called an email mapping campaign, which is essentially a list match using email addresses as the unique identifier to find the people who are in your CRM around the web. and then target them with digital advertising. So that's what's being shown here. So all that's a setup. I'm not going to talk again too much more about digital advertising, but all of that is to establish that within Feathr, you can reach net new and existing and CRM records you have through this form of targeted digital advertising. This is the form that will follow you around the web, across different websites, across different devices. You can have these kind of animated, interactive, display ads. It's called programmatic advertising. But the more interesting thing is not just targeting with digital ads, but this kind of multi-channel approach of targeting the same email list from your CRM with digital ads and sending them emails. So that's what's being shown here. So you can send an email to an email list from your CRM, and you can do this type of email mapping ad campaign. Sometimes it's called CRM retargeting, where this person or this list will now see your ads, follow them around, and they'll receive this email from you or a drip series of emails for you. So you could imagine that, hey, over the next month, I want to send one email a week for 4 weeks, and I want the same people to whom I'm sending those 4 emails to see this set of digital ads at the same time, kind of in parallel. All of the data show that multi-channel marketing significantly increases engagement rates and significantly increases brand recognition and retention. And most importantly, it significantly increases conversions, right? So in this case, driving donations. So getting that person to navigate back to the website, whether they click through directly from one of these or from keeping top of mind and nurturing them through these multiple channels, this kind of surround sound marketing, where they're seeing you in multiple places, this significantly increases the chances that they will come back and ultimately complete the action, in this case, driving donation. Another quick example, more or less the same idea, but you can also do this onto social advertising, right? So this is the same idea of sending emails and using a list to target ads, but in this case, we're talking about targeting social ads, in this case through Meta, so into the Facebook and Instagram newsfeed. Better yet, you could do the trifecta, where you could have this one email list, and you could target them with display ads around the web. You could target them with social ads in the Facebook and Instagram newsfeed, and you could send them emails. So they would see you across these 3 different digital channels over a given span of time. If you want to get really fancy, you could also have like the ads change over time, just like you might send emails that change, or they may all be slightly different messaging, but clearly themed, right? Which you can see with this example here. These are clearly part of the same kind of macro campaign or appeal. And so thematically, the messaging across the different platforms and the different channels is similar and is reinforcing, but also varied enough to increase the chance of engagement. So this slide here looks the same, but this is actually showing a completely different concept. So these prior 2 examples here are more of a proactive approach, saying, I have the list, and I want to send them email, and I want to target them with ads, right? So this is kind of this proactive. You're generating a segment or a list by some criteria, and then we're going to proactively reach out to them going forward. Similar idea of having a multi-channel approach. But in this case, this is an automation, right? This is a triggered email and a retargeting campaign that begins when someone does a certain thing. So it'd be more like setting up like a tripwire. Essentially, you can think of it as that. In this case, we're showing an example of like a shopping cart abandonment in the example of a performing arts organization. You can also do this with donation form abandonment. You could do it with abandonment of event registrations. So think about anything where there's a page. So in this case, maybe it was the page to purchase tickets for the Holiday Brass performance, and someone visits that page, or you can, again, imagine your donate page, where someone's looking at the donate page. Maybe they even start the process of filling out that form or starting that registration or that ticket purchase. And for whatever reason, they don't complete it. So they don't complete it, they drop off, they get distracted, whatever it might be. So in this case, imagine that you had set up these automations where it checks anyone who visits this page, starts the checkout process, does not complete it. I would like to send them this email. 30 minutes later, the next day, whatever you want to do, maybe even put them in a drip series to give them an email, once per day or once per, every few days until they come back, to kind of nurture them back, and start retargeting them with, in this case, we're showing a meta retargeting campaign. So this is an example of whether this one's more of a proactive approach. This is more setting based on behavior. People will start getting added to this kind of like in a one-to-one way, in a personalized way, as their behavior meets the criteria. So it looks the same, but and the same idea of the 1-2 punch of email and social ads, which again could be a trifecta of email, social ads, and kind of like digital web display ads. But in this case, only starts once they do whatever that tripwire action might be, visiting the page, but not checking out. So those are a few different ways just to kind of paint the picture of how you can do this omni-channel digital marketing inside of Feathr. And next thing we're going to jump into is talking a little bit more about, with the Razor's Edge integration, kind of how you can do more interesting versions of this, and specifically like leveraging certain fields in the CRM, how you can generate maybe more interesting automations or more interesting segments. I meant to say this before, but feel free to submit questions throughout. I'll try to keep track of the chat. There's also the Q&A functionality, which is a little bit easier to kind of review and stay on top of. So make sure I have these pulled up. But if you have questions throughout, either put them in the chat or submit them through the Q&A. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Razor's Edge integration. So, Feathr is a Blackbaud ISV partner. So we're an independent software vendor. We are part of the Blackbaud Partner Program, and we've built a native integration into Razor's Edge NXT. So by native integration, I mean we've built it. It's inside of Feathr, and it's all you have to do is a few buttons inside of Feathr and a few button clicks inside of Razor's Edge. So it's direct between the two of us. There's no third party involved. So you don't have to buy like a middleware. You don't have to have like a custom integration built by somebody. You don't have to go through any kind of connector or any third party. So it's natively inside of Feathr, set a few buttons, and then inside of Razor's Edge to approve a few things. The main use case for this is pulling constituent records into Feathr, where Feathr would be the place where you activate upon this data. So sending emails, targeting ad campaigns, creating segments, and also marrying CRM data, the identified people, contacts, and with all these fields and the information you already have with them, marrying that with the kind of web analytics data and anonymous behavioral data that Feathr is collecting as well. So I'll show that now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the integration. Okay. All right, so I'm going to now, here we go. All right, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit, make it a little easier to see. Let me know if this is still too zoomed out or if this is good to see. But what I'm showing here, so now I'm in the Feathr user interface. I just want to show a little bit of the data that Feathr tracks. So Feathr has very robust website analytics data. And so we are, oh, thank you, Cody. Am I sharing the wrong screen? Boom, how about that? Better? Cool, thanks y'all. All right, so again, this will be a refresher for a few people who are already Feathr customers, but maybe I can still give you a couple of tips while at it. So this is showing, the community section of Feathr. Community, being your audiences, both your known and anonymous, right? So if we look at anonymous data, because Feathr loves bird puns, we assign placeholder names to every website visitor. So I'm looking at Feathr's own Feathr account right now. So the indigo flamingo, right? This is an anonymous web visitor, and this is a unique web visitor. So we're tracking them over time. So we can click into the indigo flamingo, and we say this person on this day at this time did this action. They came from a Chrome browser. They were on a Windows computer, it looks like here, and they came to our homepage. They came from this location, etc. Right? So this is showing the level of information that every touch point, every action from every web visitor, and if they did multiple things over time, we'd be able to track that as well. This person's only done 2 things. This is a placeholder contact record. So this person, we don't have their name, we don't have their email address, we don't have any other information. We have some metadata gathered about their behavior, which is what you're seeing here on the right. We can see approximately their location, and from that kind of back into broader strokes location. And we can see a little bit about, date, time, first seen, number of times seen, number of sessions, right? So this person's only had 1 session that we've tracked, and they visited, 2 pages, it looks like, well, part of that. So that's what we're looking at here. But over time, these anonymous people, one, we get more and more information about them, each one, if they continue coming back, if they are visiting pages, if we target them with ads, we'll be able to see which ad campaigns they've interacted with. But the goal would be, in time, to marry this behavioral data with the identifiable information onboarded from a CRM. I'll just click into one more because you can see someone who's maybe done a few more actions. This person submitted a form, and before that they did this, and before that they viewed this page, and before that maybe they clicked a page or something. So you kind of trace back the different actions that this person has done. And depending on the form, so it seems like this form must not have been one, but if certain forms have identifiable information filled out, then that's a great opportunity where someone fills out that form to say, oh, it turns out that the Indigo Flamingo, that was actually Aiden Augustine the whole time. And maybe that's an opportunity to do a join between 2 records where you had maybe onboarded some information about Aiden Augustine from the CRM, and we were tracking a separate, person that anonymously, Indigo Flamingo, turns out that was Aiden Augustine, and then Feathr is trying to see, oh, these are the same person, either the same thing across different devices. We're trying to do our best between different cookies we're tracking and so forth to say, oh, this is actually the same person. And by connecting data from the CRM, if you send emails out, that's another way to kind of match the heretofore anonymous person with an identified contact record. So if you send an email, and that's clearly targeting the contact record that you have in that case, and if they click from that email to the site, then once they're on the site, that's a chance to say, oh, now we're tracking them as web visitor. And again, if there was already that web visitor was being tracked anonymously, then we say, okay, we know that these 2 are the same person. So just a couple of different ways that over time, this anonymous web analytics data and these visitors that are being tracked, in time, we're trying to identify them as also people who are in CRM or for whom we have other data for. And you can create some interesting segments with this, right? And so let me show an example. This is somebody who has an email address, but we also want to say, let's say someone who's been to a specific page. Let's say, show me the people who have been to our homepage. Let's see, matches all this criteria. Maybe only people who have been to the homepage, since, we can say exact date and time. Let's say people who have been to, actually, let's do a relative date. Let's say someone who's, been to the homepage in the last 30 days, right? So that would be an example of how you can kind of say these are identified people. We'll pick on Mackenzie. She's someone who works at Feathr. And so now we know that this specific person who we do have additional contact fields on. So this is an example of someone who we can see, classic profile contact field information, but also we can see things like, oh, we know that they visit the Feathr homepage in the last 30 days, right? So that's a little bit showing the kind of like web analytics data, how that's collected, how in time, matching that with identified records from the CRM or from form fills or from other imports that you can do into Feathr, from a CSV or something like that to kind of flesh out this community section, which is ultimately the audiences and the people in your community. From there, obviously you can save, those combinations, create those filters and save them as groups that you could then target with certain marketing activity, sending emails, targeting with ads, doing both to the same target group, and so on. So let's jump back a little bit to talking about Razor's Edge for a moment, and then I'll get into showing some kind of fun automation ideas, some segmentation ideas, and so forth. All right. So in terms of how to set up, like I said, Feathr is in the Blackbaud marketplace. So we're an official Blackbaud partner. We show up in this marketplace. You can see a little bit more info there. In terms of how you would connect if you're already a Feathr customer, So, partially you need to go through the marketplace. There's a couple of steps. So this is where you get started. If you wanted to connect your Razor's Edge environment to Feathr, there's a few things you do on the Feathr side. There's a few things you do on the Blackbaud side. Of course, if you're not currently a Feathr customer, you can also go here and then click Contact Us as a way to get in touch. The setup process is actually quite straightforward. Like I said, it's relatively point and click on each end. That's the benefit of a native integration. You map the fields from the constituent record over to what we call person records in Feathr, but that's the contact record. And so you would say, these are the fields from Razor's Edge that I want to bring in. And you can bring in some gift data, and then primarily it's constituent data. And so you'd say you can create custom fields in Feathr. You can create fields that you specifically want to map this one and this one and this one for Razor's Edge. Okay, well, let me make those. Maybe I'll add them with like some kind of nomenclature to make it easy for me to know these are from Ari. Some of the common fields, I would say, that people bring in, obviously some basic contact info, which is what you're seeing here, but some of the more interesting things would obviously be, first gift, date, last gift, most recent gift, date, lifetime giving amount, are they a recurring donor, any of these other things related to their donation behavior. If you have information about certain events they've engaged with or attended, if that's something that's a big part of your strategy, then bringing that in. You don't need to bring in everything, but really the question would be, hey, if I bring this in, can I use it in some interesting way to make my marketing and communications more relevant to this person, right? So think about ways you would want to pivot. Mapping fields that cannot be turned off. And is there a list of items we can custom map? I'm not sure fully understand the question there, Julie. So if you want to add a little more context, maybe I can try again. I think I can riff for a moment in saying, there is technically a limit to how many custom fields you can make within Feathr, but it's quite high. So you can make many. It depends on which version of Feathr you're on is the cap on how many custom fields that you can make. If you're on Feathr Advanced, which is the version that comes with the native integration with Razor's Edge, I think the cap is 200 custom fields, so it's quite high. Unlikely that you would need all of those. Is there, I guess, mapping fields that can't be turned out? Like, are there mandatory fields that you need to map over? Is that maybe the question? Mapping the ID, right? Either the constituent ID or the system ID, I think is actually the one that we use now. That's one that is mandatory. Email address. So yes, these are the two that are mandatory. I believe everything else is optional. There are other ones that I guess we would recommend too, and again, I kind of rattled a few of them off, but things related to giving behavior, it's common ways you want to segment. If you have an idea of membership, obviously membership status would be a good one. And if you have other ways you categorize your donors in terms of tier or level, gift amount, that might be something, most recent gift amount, lifetime giving, number of unique gifts, any of those kind of things that you might pivot off of in terms of like, okay, I want to send different emails to these different groups of people. Again, target ads to these different groups of people. Pivoting off of some of that information, I think those are the things that make the most sense to bring in. The way the sync works is it is an ongoing sync. So approximately 1 hour after changes are made in Razor's Edge NXT, they will sync over to Feathr, updating the contact records in Feathr. If you have more questions on that, let me know. I can kind of answer them throughout. Just want to list a couple of ideas here, and then I can show how to build a few of these inside of Feathr, and I can show a little bit more about like the auto send email and triggers, triggered emails. I'll jump into that. And some of those common automations that we would see, a donor welcome series, right? So if someone's a first-time donor, a new donor, checking, thank you, Julie, for the endorsement. Appreciate it. But if someone's a new donor, a first-time donor, setting a welcome series to thank them for their contribution, to send additional information about your organization. There's some great research from Next After about kind of like the optimal time window to get someone to make another gift. And my memory of it is it's much sooner than you would think. Like it's once people donate, it's kind of like they're warm. Obviously, this might vary by gift amount and things like that, but particularly for the kind of like smaller gift amounts online, that once someone is doing so, kind of staying active and nurturing them over that first 3 months. And I think it was 90 days is my memory of like the best time to get that second gift from a first-time donor. I'll have to find the research paper. Maybe we can send it out. But the point of that was, don't sleep on people who are new first-time donors, continuing to stay actively engaged with them. And one of the ways you can do that is by setting up this type of automation. So then it's a little bit of a set and forget, right? So you don't need to constantly be like trying to once a month create segments of the people who've donated in the last month. You could do that too. You could say, hey, who are the people who've donated for the first time in this month? And at the end of each month, you could send out an email to just that group. But you could also set up this type of automation, which sets it up so that there is a drip that will automatically happen for people who come in and their first donation. Birthdays are a common one, right? If you have the birthday field in Razor's Edge and you want to bring that over, you could set it up to everybody gets a thank you or a birthday email, from you on their birthday, and that will go out automatically. You can have merge fields, right, in the email to personalize it for them. If you do recurring or monthly, if you do monthly giving and someone cancels, right? So if you have that data in a field in Razor's Edge, you can pivot off of that and saying, oh, if someone cancels, maybe I want to re-engage them. Similarly, around membership, right? If there's a membership date, like if you have subscriptions or some kind of like, annual member, type of tier that is up for renewal, if there's like a specific membership renewal date for each person, you can back up from that and say, hey, maybe 90 days out from that membership renewal, I want to start a drip series of emails, or I want to start an ad campaign to re-engage them. I'll pause for a sec here because I see a couple of comments coming through. So Warren asked a question about opting out or bounce data. The short answer is yes. So we do send back changes to communication preferences that are made. So if you're using Feathr as your primary email marketing solution, and then people are unsubscribing within Feathr, we communicate that back to NXT. I believe it's using solicit codes is the area that we update. So we do sync back unsubscribes and communication preference changes. An email address is required for the sync currently. 80% confident in that. Let's see, hard bounces. That's a good nuanced question. We totally track hard bounces in Feathr. So anytime you send out an email, I'll pull up one in a moment so you can see the real reporting. But we show, targeted, how many actually sent, successful delivery rate. We're trying to show you your deliverability, hard bounces, things like that, unsubscribes from that specific email. So we show successfully opens, clicks, right? So we show kind of each step of that. I'm not 100% sure if a hard bounce automatically triggers a unsubscribe send back to RE. So I might have to get back to you on that one. You could probably set it up to do so. But we definitely sync back the unsubscribes and communication preference changes. One other comment about emails, but we actually recently added an enhancement to the integration so that for people with multiple email addresses, you can choose to send to all email addresses or just one. So that's a choice you can make if you have multiple email addresses on a constituent. You can choose whether to send to just one or many. There is not an explicit fee for the integration, but in the Feathr case, it is part of the higher tier of Feathr. So Feathr has two main tiers. There's Feathr Essential and Feathr Advanced. And so the native integrations come with Feathr Advanced, along with a few other things. So it's not exactly like a one-off fee to pay for the integration activation, if that's the nature of the question, but it is included in the higher tier, the Feathr Advanced version, which also comes with additional contact records, additional users, and higher level of custom fields that you can make, a whole slew of additional things, admin privileges that you can set. So it's part of the kind of more advanced data infrastructure capabilities of Feathr Advanced, which includes the native integration. As a point of interest for anyone who's on a different CRM, though I doubt you'd be on this call if so, but Feathr is also integrated into Zapier. And so Zapier integration covers a handful of other CRMs in the space. For example, Boomerang, Give Butter, Virtuous, a couple other ones are on Zapier. And so that is something that is also available. Now, that one you do have to use a third-party tool using Zapier for the if this, then that, and you can get contact records in and out and back and forth. But that's included in both if you're on one of those other tools. All good questions. When importing the full donor data fields into Feathr, so that would be if you have already been using Feathr and already have email addresses at play and contact records inside of Feathr, how does it work for the deduplication? That is a great question. I might have to fully get back to you on that one too, because I don't want to misspeak. There is some effort of, like I said before, contact record connection and merging, which we're doing in a number of different ways. I mentioned it before in the context of the web visitors who are anonymous turning into identified and connecting those over time. Rachel, if there's a chance that you can get the specific answer to that one while we're on this, I think that would be helpful to Jenna's question. If not, we'll get the explicit answer to it. I just want to make sure I don't misspeak. Can I talk more about the Zapier integration with GiveButter? I think the short version is Zapier. You can set, it's sort of like it is a middleware where you can set automations, right? So tools like Feathr integrate with Zapier, other tools, GiveButter in this case, integrate with Zapier. And it depends on what GiveButter has made available, but usually it's things like a record is created, a record is edited, right? Those are like the two most common ones. And so those are like actions that you can pivot off of. So when that happens, you set up a zap in Zapier that says, when a new record is created in GiveButter, create that same record in Feathr and bring these fields over, right? When a record is edited in GiveButter, edit that same related record in Feathr, matching based on the constituent ID, the system ID, whatever that unique identifier from the CRM is that's passed over to Feathr in the initial sync, and then that's kind of used as the match going forward. So that's I think the short answer there. Did I miss any other questions? Let me scroll back up for a second. Nicole, about Power Apps, do we foresee a Power Automate connector? Anything's possible, but right now I would say we're more focused on continuing to build out this native integration with Razor's Edge, and continue to make it great and enhance it. And we every few weeks, recently over the last, or certainly every month, we've been turning around additional minor enhancements. So we just launched this native integration with Razor's Edge in, I think it was February or March of this year. And we've continued to just kind of, based on customer requests, like, oh, we want to send this back. Oh, we want to be able to send multiple emails, right? So continuing to enhance it and expand upon it. And so I think right now, rather than looking at another route to connect into Blackbaud, we're more focused on continuing to build out this native integration. To Cody's question, so right now, the only two-way sync component is changes to the communication preferences or unsubscribes. That's a very much a existing topic of like, well, what would we want to send back? I think that's something we're very open to input on. So I'd encourage for anybody who's a customer call, or actually anyone else, if you're looking at Feathr and it's really important to you to be able to do A, B, or C with Razor's Edge integration, either way, and certainly if you're an existing customer, let us know because we allocate a meaningful portion of our product development team's energy every month to just turning around customer requests, kind of like minor improvements, surprise and delight. So if you have something specific, like is it certain you want to send field data back, field changes? Is it more you want like Feathr's marketing engagement data, right? You want when they visit a website, you want that to be sent back, or is it email engagement you want to send back, the email opens. So let us know what it is you'd want to send back, Cody, I think, or anyone else who has some requests on that front. But no, right now, the only thing we're sending back is the unsubscribe data. Right, so Nicole, things like interaction with email campaigns, right? Sending back, they opened this email, they clicked this email. I think it'd probably be redundant to send back most conversion data because most of the conversion data that we're tracking is probably also feeding into Razor's Edge, at least for donation campaigns. It would be feeding into Razor's Edge from the online fundraising platform, whether you're using the NXT forms of Blackbauds or you're using something like a Fundraise Up or a Classy. But if you had other types of conversions that you wanted to track within Feathr, like visiting key pages, like if you run an ad campaign to drive traffic to a certain page of your website, that you were trying to like make sure a specific program or a specific, offering a specific event, right? And you actually wanted to define the conversion as like successfully having visited the page in question. If you wanted to, maybe that'd be something to send back. Right, for gift offers, yeah, that's great feedback. Encourage you, Nicole, to make that request again to your customer success point of contact. I think we actually now also have a formal product request, like self-serve way you can do that, which we can send you as a follow-up too. But yeah, this is great. Great to hear. Yeah, good ideas. Love it. Cool. Well, let me jump back into a little more content. There was a couple more things I want to show how to build some of these, which I thought might be helpful to everybody. Showing some of the filters and segmentation that would be to kind of bring some of this to life. Right, so these are just a few other ideas. Lapse donors, people who haven't donated in a long time, right? Or people who are in certain locations. People you want to pivot off of, again, amount or donor tier. And again, within Feathr, part of the interesting thing and the unique value proposition here with Feathr is that you can combine this data, which you already have in your CRM, with the additional layer of web visits. So for example, on this first one on the right, lapsed donors, you might say, okay, who are the people who have not donated in the last 6 months, but they've been to our website in the last 30 days, right? So they haven't donated in 6 months, but they've been back to the website. So we must be on their mind, right? That would be an interesting segment. And you might think, let me target that group with a mix of emails and ads, right? So that would be a way you can combine this CRM data with the kind of website behavior data in some novel ways. So let me show how to build that real quick. Maybe we can get through one or two other of these. Okay. Oh. All right. We back in the Feathr app? Let me know if you're seeing that correctly. So this is showing here a way you might build that segment of, okay, show me from the Razor's Edge field sync. The date of last gift is before, we're using relative dates, this would kind of be like a rolling one, 180 days ago. So this would be showing the people who have made a gift, but it's more than 180 days ago. But also, we have an email for them, and they've been to the Feathr homepage. But actually, let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's say they've been to the Feathr homepage, but they did so recently, right? So there were, I think, 3 people in my prior example, but only 2 have been to this page recently. Obviously, this is sort of just for show. So these are Feathr employees, and I'm using a little bit of dummy data to prove this point. So there were 3 people, if I delete this again, it goes up to 3. So 3 people that have made their last date of last gift was more than 180 days ago and have been to our website. But we're going to say we want the more interesting thing of the people who have done so relatively recently, right? And so that's a group of 2. And then we would say, let's save this as a group. We're going to say, that would be people who have greater than 180 days, but less than 30 days in terms of when they've visited the website, right? And you can see the specific people that match that criteria. So that's just a way, again, you can think about mixing and matching. What do you know from Razor's Edge and the donation data with what do we know about their website behavior? Let me show a kind of a version of this. This would be more like you're creating the segment, and now I want to target them, right? So before we talked about that proactive, which is like you create the segment and you want to send everybody on this list a set of emails, and everybody on this list you're going to target with a set of ads. But there's also that reactive way, right? Setting an automation, like a trigger, And then as people meet the criteria, then they'll get it one-to-one individually, or then they'll get put into the retargeting campaign at that time. So I'm going to show how to build a auto send email using some of the same type of talking through some of these options. So let me just jump into here, and I'll jump into one that I already started just to save a little bit of time. But hopefully, if any of you have used Feathr, you've seen this before, and if you've seen a demo. But this is our editor. This was from a template. I pulled this template in, and let's say we want to edit this template, and let's say I want to do something like I want to add another section like this, and in that section I want to make an image over here, and I want to do a paragraph text here, right? And for this image I want to do, let's see, I want to do this cute bird. So I have this cute bird, and this is got a message from our board president. Let's have a message from our mascot here, right? And then you can say I also want to add list. Right? So you can see relatively straightforward drag and drop editor. We like to think it's pretty easy to use, and we have a bunch of pre-made templates, a number that are kind of tailored to specific use cases that are common, as well as just some structured ones that we think might be helpful. So that's an example of showing a little bit about the editor, drag and drop. You can obviously see what it would look like. You want to see what it looks like on mobile. Okay, let's see that. Okay, now it's rearranges the content a little bit, right? Versus what does it look like when it's on desktop? So that's our editor. You say who you want the email to be from, subject, preview text, etc. The most interesting thing here is this is an automation, right? So this is an auto send email. So this is an email that we're saying, okay, that's the email that's going to go out. Who's going to go to? So I'm going to zoom in on this for a second. These are the 3 different trigger types that can cause someone to receive an email. So one is activity. So this would be actions that they're taking, right? So this would be the example of, okay, I want it to be someone visits the Feathr homepage, right? So this would be the activity of one of these tracked people visiting the Feathr homepage. That's what I want to be the trigger. And then you could say I want it to happen immediately, or I want there to be delay. How long is the delay? Only the first time that they match the criteria, or every time, right? So for example, like this, you'd probably want to make it only the first time, because if someone kept going to that page, you don't want them to get the same email each time. That would make sense, right? Depending on the situation, you might want to make it send every time. Field changed, right? So this would be an example of maybe things like status, member status, right? If you wanted it to be pivoting off of the fact that they were a member and now they're not, or they were recurring or a monthly giver and now they're not, or other things like that. I think that's, another example might be based on gift amount or donor tier, or maybe it's something like if you're pulling in data about event registration, and if you turn that into a field of like, is registered for the gala or did attend event, something like that. So that'd be an example of a field where the value changed. And then based on that, you might want to trigger a certain automation. I think the example of like the membership status is probably more clear there. And then date triggered. Date triggered would be more like I want it to be based on the date, that let's say here, let's see, the date of last gift. Maybe if we want to say something like, if it's been more than 90 days, send them an email to re-engage them, right? Or if the data, more like, maybe a better example would be starting a welcome series, right? So this would be if the date of the first gift was a day ago. So this would mean everybody would they would get this first email the day after their first donation, right? So this would be an example of a date triggered email based on a date field, and relative to that date field, they match this criteria, they get this email. So that would be, again, more used for this example would be the first time they donated being 1 day ago. Let's kick them into a welcome series. Okay. Let's see. We're coming up on time, so I want to show 1 or 2 more things. I want to answer any final questions. I also just got an answer to one of the previous questions, so I can share that in just a moment. If you have any more, please feel free to keep sending them in. Let's see. So we showed a little bit more here. I guess equally important in these types of automations is exclusion data, right? So it's kind of similar to how we're building this criteria there. You can do the same in terms of saying who do you not want to send it to, right? So you might say, I want to exclude people whose total giving amount is above a certain threshold, or whose most recent gift was within the last 90 days. I don't want to bug people who've donated recently when you're doing these types of automations, right? So that would be an example of setting up an exclusion. You could say, I want to exclude people based on if you have people in your CRM where there's like a very clearly, volunteers versus donors, and maybe you want to treat the volunteers slightly differently, right? Not that you shouldn't be trying to turn volunteers to donors, because obviously that's a great place. But if you have other types of categories that make sense to exclude from, asking for donations. So that's equally important when thinking about targeting, is kind of the negative set here. That's also important when thinking about, for example, targeting ads. You would say, I want to target all the people that, a classic like a cart abandonment campaign, like we talked about before. So I want to say the people who have been to this donation page, did not donate, you want to target them, but you want to exclude anybody who did successfully donate, right? So that's another way to think about exclusions. I'll pause there for a second. So I do want to circle back real quick. Jenna, if you are still on the call, and you before we're asking a little bit about deduplication efforts, since I have the answer on that here. Primary email address is also used. So we're trying to match based on primary email. So if a donor already exists in Feathr, they have a primary email and that matches the primary email of a constituent in RE. So we can match based on that. Once you've done the sync, the field in Feathr is called external ID, but that would be populated with the system ID from Razor's Edge. So that becomes unique identifier, both for new records that are brought in, as well as ones that, from that point on, for any matching like edits to the fields that happen in RE, that's what's matched upon. You can actually, so matching on that note, matching in Feathr, doing like a bulk upsync of trying to find from the existing records that are in Feathr based on their emails, matching them based on the RE email and enriching with the constituent ID or system ID. Then kind of from then on, turning on the sync. That's how we'd recommend the order of operations. The short answer is yes, Liesel. So to clarify my last comment, the most robust way would be to first try to specifically enrich those existing ones in Feathr with the ID, and then the sync would match on ID, but it can the original sync can also try to match primary email address. Yeah. And that's another point. If the primary email address in Feathr and matches a non-primary email, like an additional email in RE, it will not automatically reconcile the records. And that's by design. Great, hopefully that was helpful. Cool. So let's see. We touched on, a few examples of automations, a few different ways you could build the segments. Something I want to make sure I reiterate once again is that you can scope these segments in a manner that you can then activate both with email and with social ads and with display and other forms, pre-roll video, those types of programmatic advertising efforts. This can be done both in the proactive way and in this kind of like triggered way. So you could have a mirror. So right here, we're in an auto send campaign, right? So this is an idea of triggering an email, and we've been playing around with filters to send this email, but you could essentially have a sister campaign that was an ad retargeting campaign that would have the same or similar criteria. And that when people were put into that segment, they would start being retargeted with ads. Again, whether that was a shopping cart abandonment or was something like, pivoting off of these date fields in Razor's Edge. So if the if the contact has been matched to their web visitor equivalent and that has been unified, then we would be able to target them based on their web behavior in addition to this. And you could use this, I guess maybe to be clear, you can use the Razor's Edge data to target ads, assuming that the record has been matched. All right, so let's see, a couple other things to touch on. So, I mean, I think it's probably fairly straightforward as to like why one would want to sync, to have an integration with your CRM into your marketing platform. But I did want to highlight a quote. We just did a great case study on this organization. Is this sharing back in the slides? Yeah, great. So any time when my fundraisers update something in Razor's Edge, whether that's someone's contact information, preferred salutation, or they logged a gift, all of that is synced directly into Feathr. And I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it, right? So convenience, right? If you have a native integration in place between your CRM and your marketing platform, all of the changes that are happening in RE in this case, coming through to your marketing platform automatically, right? So that's the main reason is convenience. Data integrity is another obvious one. And then the enablement of these interesting automations, particularly ones that are pivoting off of changes like dates or status and gifts, things like that are happening and are being recorded. So it's not just for the convenience of a one-time sync. It is because this is a living, breathing set of data in your CRM, and your marketing platform should be activating on that living, breathing set of data in these types of ways, these types of automations, these types of segments, these types of more interesting and therefore more effective marketing campaigns. But it's a major relief of effort when you don't have to be doing CSV uploads periodically when it's just syncing automatically. The unsubscribes are another one, right? Staying compliant and keeping your email list healthy. So having unsubscribed data cut back, that's a pretty significant benefit, and keep our lists clean and healthy. We did just do a case study on the American Friends and the Israeli Philharmonic. So this case study shows a little bit more about their specific use cases and some of their success with the integration. So if you want to learn a little bit more, this is on our website. You can check that out. And we're coming up right on time here. So if anyone else has questions, this is your chance to submit them. And I know, Rachel, we have one little poll question that we always do. So for anybody here who is not a Feathr customer and is interested in learning more about Feathr and speaking with our team, you can let us know. So Rachel can launch that poll. The link, I can grab the link. Yes, let me grab the link. I'll drop it here if you're interested. But it is also on our website if you check out our resources section. Tanner, you've got a question. That's great. I'm sure we can track that down and get back to you. So Rachel, if you don't mind recording that one, I'm sure we can get you someone to chat with, Tanner. Oh, sorry, Susan. I dropped the link, but I didn't realize I only sent it to my fellow hosts and panelists. Classic. Okay, take two. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, appreciate everybody for spending some time. Hopefully it was helpful. We're always interested in feedback of what would be more useful to you, whether you're interested in Feathr or you're a current Feathr customer. What do you want to see more of with this type of stuff? We do a mix of thought leadership, some that's super Feathr specific, like this one. We do a lot that's also broader, kind of thought leadership. We bring on guests. So let us know. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you like. If you didn't like it, let us know that too. That's great. And if you have requests about the integration, we're here for that too. Appreciate y'all. Have a great day.